7 Little Johnston's fans want TLC to cancel the show, say it's boring and getting dragged too much. TLC's hit series 7 Little Johnstons has garnered much heat over the last few years. They are continuing to receive tremendous hatred. That is because of the Johnston family's disturbing behavior. As the years pass, more and more concerning details about the family's dynamics have come to light. It all happened after Anna moved out to seek individuality. Overnight, she was the villain in everyone's story. All the family members started snubbing her out of family gatherings except for Aunt Heidi to protect her mental. Anna decided to leave the show that had understandably created a huge ruckus within the fandom. A large portion of the fan base thereafter boycotted the show. Now the fandom is additionally urging TLC to cancel the show. 7 Little Johnston's fans blast Liz for her controlling behavior during wedding planning. TLC has released various sneak peeks of 7 Little Johnston's teasing Liz and Bryce's wedding planning. However, since then, many fans have come forward to point out that the wedding planning is increasingly looking like Liz's wedding, not Liz and Bryce's. That is because those sneak peeks showed Liz either shutting down Bryce's ideas or failing to incorporate them, in which Liz harshly judged Bryce's hunter-themed suit during wedding dress shopping. Moreover, during their engagement shoot, Bryce had requested an additional hunter-themed shoot. However, when their wedding invites arrived, Bryce noticed that none of the photos were on them. Liz quickly reminded him that she had made it clear she wouldn't include those photos on their wedding invites. Therefore, the fandom is now trolling Liz. 7 Little Johnston's fans are urging TLC to cancel the show because it's boring. 7 Little Johnston's has lost a big chunk of its fan following after Anna left the show. Following Anna's departure, many fans have since boycotted the show. The ones who have remained are always complaining about the show and the Johnstons. Furthermore, many fans have been urging TLC to cancel the show. They think the family is not fit to appear on national television. Many fans on fan forums like Reddit have expressed their growing disdain for the show. They think that TLC has paid for Liz and Bryce's wedding and capitalized on Anna's trauma. I really don't know what's left of this family to show, the OP remarked. Moreover, since this season is primarily based on Liz and Bryce's wedding, the fandom is finding it more annoying than ever. Other Redditors have since chimed in agreeing to these fan demands. They think that the show has become repetitive. Furthermore, the family has been very controversial lately. That is because of their inappropriate behavior and dysfunctional family dynamics. Their disturbing ideologies have long made the fandom very uncomfortable. However, a few fans also pointed out that the show might return for another season since Liz is pregnant again with her second child. A few other fans even theorized that Alex wanting to move away might provide some more drama. Other fans even theorized that the show might finally give more screen time to Jonah and Ashley. For more such latest reality TV updates, stay tuned to TV season and spoilers. 7 Little Johnston's Why Anna is missing from Season 17. 7 Little Johnston star Anna Johnston is missing from Season 17. But why? Let's take a closer look at why Amber and Trent Johnston's eldest daughter is missing in action on the TLC reality series. On Tuesday, March 17th, Season 17 of 7LJ premiered, but Anna was glaringly absent despite the family celebrating Father's Day and her sister Liz Johnston going wedding dress shopping. 7 Little Johnstons addressed why Anna was missing in Season 17. In the first half of Season 17, Episode 1, a producer asked Amber and Trent, "So, can you give us an update on what's going on with Anna?" Amber explained, "All of our children have the opportunity and the freedom to participate in the show, and the ones that have chosen to participate are participating, and the ones that have not are not." TLC then displayed the following message. Anna has chosen not to participate in the current season of 7 Little Johnston. Anna previously explained why she wasn't returning to the show. During a live stream in November 2025, Anna explained the reason she decided not to return to 7 Little Johnston Season 17. "It is sad that the last season I'll be part of is ending like this because did not want it," she said. Per the Ashley's reality roundup, "I want y'all to see the good side and not just people bashing me and everything like that. Bashing me for dumb stuff that they're apparently getting onto me about, you know. So, that's hard." Ultimately, Anna said she decided to step away from the show to prioritize her mental health. She explained, It was hard to say no to another season, but it just got to be mentally that just had to, stop filming. A rift between Anna and her family has formed in recent years. In season 16 of 7LJ, Anna and her parents address the cause of their growing rift. The starting issue that led to not seeing my family for this amount of time was the graduation gown. And that single moment about the graduation gown, something that sounded so small on the surface, is what Anna said became the starting point of a much bigger distance between her and the rest of the family. And once that distance started growing, it didn't just stay limited to one disagreement. It slowly turned into something that affected every interaction, every family gathering, every conversation that followed. Because when a family issue isn't fully resolved, it doesn't disappear. It lingers. And in Anna's case, fans believe it turned into a quiet divide that cameras couldn't fully capture, but viewers could still feel through the screen. And that's exactly when people began noticing that Anna wasn't just physically stepping back. She was emotionally disconnecting too. Not in a dramatic way, but in those subtle moments where she seemed less engaged, less comfortable. Almost like she was trying to protect herself while still being part of a system that constantly put her under pressure. And the more fans revisited those old scenes, the clearer it became that Anna's journey on the show had never really been as easy as it was sometimes presented. Because while other siblings seemed to fit more naturally into the family structure, Anna often appeared to be navigating expectations that didn't quite align with who she was as a person, and that mismatch is something viewers are now calling out more than ever, especially after hearing her own explanation about choosing her mental health over continuing the show. Because that decision didn't come from nowhere, it came after years of building pressure, and once she finally stepped away, it created a ripple effect that the show is still dealing with right now. Because suddenly the storyline that once felt balanced started to feel one-sided. And that's where the focus shifted heavily toward Liz and Bryce. But instead of bringing fresh energy to the series, their wedding storyline ended up opening another wave of criticism, because fans didn't just see a couple planning their future, they started seeing a dynamic that felt uneven, where Bryce's ideas were often overlooked and Liz appeared to take full control of the process. And while some viewers defended her, saying it's normal for one partner to take the lead, a much larger portion of the audience felt uncomfortable watching how frequently Bryce's input was dismissed, especially during moments that were supposed to represent both of them equally, like the engagement shoot where his hunter-themed idea was not fully embraced, or the invitations where he realized his preferred photos weren't included at all. And those details might seem minor individually, but together they created a narrative that fans couldn't ignore, and that narrative fed directly into the growing criticism of the entire family dynamic, because now viewers weren't just focused on one relationship. They were analyzing patterns across the whole show, patterns of control, patterns of favoritism, and patterns of communication that didn't always seem healthy. And once that conversation started spreading online, it quickly turned into something much bigger than just episode reactions, because platforms like Reddit became filled with discussions breaking down every scene, every interaction, every decision that felt questionable. And that's when the tone of the fandom shifted from casual viewing to active critique. Because people were no longer just watching for entertainment. They were watching with a purpose, trying to understand what was really happening behind the scenes. And that curiosity is what eventually led to the most serious reaction yet. Calls for TLC to cancel the show altogether. And this wasn't just a small group of critics. It was a growing number of longtime viewers who felt that the show had lost what originally made it appealing. Because instead of a genuine look into a unique family, it now felt repetitive, overly produced, and at times even uncomfortable to watch, especially when sensitive situations like Anna's departure seemed to be brushed over rather than addressed in a meaningful way. And that frustration only intensified when fans started speculating that the network might be benefiting from the very drama that was causing discomfort, because reality television has always walked a fine line between storytelling and exploitation, and in this case many viewers believe that line may have been crossed, particularly when it comes to how Anna's experiences were portrayed or possibly misunderstood. And once that idea took hold, it became difficult for the show to regain the trust it once had with its audience. Because trust in reality TV isn't just about what is shown. It's about what viewers believe is real. And when that belief starts to break down, everything else follows: ratings, engagement, and overall support. And yet, despite all this backlash, there are still signs that the show might continue, with some fans pointing to new developments like Liz's pregnancy or potential changes in other sibling storylines as reasons the network could push forward with another season. But even those possibilities come with mixed reactions, because while some viewers are curious to see what happens next, many others feel that continuing the show without addressing its deeper issues would only make things worse, and that leaves the future of Seven Little Johnstons in a very uncertain place, caught between maintaining its legacy and facing the reality of a changing audience that is no longer willing to overlook the problems they once ignored. And at the center of all of it remains Anna, not as an active participant on the screen, but as the catalyst for a conversation that has reshaped how the entire show is perceived. Because sometimes the biggest impact doesn't come from what is shown, but from what is missing. And in this case, Anna's absence continues to raise questions that the show has yet to fully answer, and the moment viewers started asking those unanswered questions, the entire foundation of the show began to feel different. Because once doubt enters the picture, it changes how every scene is interpreted. Every conversation is judged more critically, and every silence suddenly feels intentional. And that is exactly what happened after Anna stepped away. Because her absence didn't just remove a character from the screen, it removed a perspective that many fans now realize was essential to understanding the full story. And without that balance, the narrative started leaning heavily in one direction, making everything feel more controlled, more filtered, and less authentic than before. And that's when longtime viewers began to revisit older seasons, not for nostalgia, but for clarity, trying to figure out where things started to shift, trying to pinpoint the exact moments when the family dynamic stopped feeling natural and started feeling staged. And as those rewatches gained traction online, more and more people began sharing clips, analyzing interactions, and highlighting scenes that now carry a completely different meaning than they did at the time they first aired. Because context changes everything, and with the new context of Anna's departure, even the smallest details started to stand out in ways they never had before. Like the tone of certain conversations, the way disagreements were handled, and the subtle differences in how each sibling was treated depending on the situation. And once those patterns became visible, they couldn't be unseen, which only fueled the growing criticism surrounding the show. And at the same time, the ongoing focus on Liz and Bryce's wedding continued to divide the audience even further, because while the show presented it as a central storyline meant to bring excitement and celebration, many fans felt it highlighted the very issues they were already concerned about, particularly the imbalance in decision-making and the lack of genuine collaboration between the couple. And instead of feeling like a shared journey, it often came across as a one-sided process where Bryce's voice was present but not truly heard. And that perception led to an increase in negative reactions across social media platforms, where viewers didn't hold back in expressing their opinions, calling out moments they found uncomfortable, and questioning whether the show was accurately representing reality or simply shaping a narrative that prioritized drama over authenticity. And as those discussions continued to grow, they began to overlap with broader conversations about reality television as a whole. Because what was happening on Seven Little Johnstons started to feel like part of a larger pattern seen across multiple shows, where personal struggles and family conflicts are turned into content, edited into storylines, and presented in ways that may not fully reflect the complexity of real life. And that realization made some viewers step back entirely, choosing to disengage from the show rather than continue supporting something that no longer felt right to them. And this shift in audience behavior is something that networks like TLC cannot ignore, because viewer loyalty is one of the most important factors in sustaining a long-running series. And once that loyalty begins to fade, it becomes increasingly difficult to maintain the same level of success. And yet, despite all the backlash and criticism, there remains a level of curiosity that keeps people talking. Because even those who claim to have stopped watching often stay updated through clips, discussions, and online recaps. And that ongoing attention creates a complicated situation where the show is both losing and retaining its audience at the same time. And that tension is likely one of the reasons why the future of the series remains uncertain, because while controversy can generate attention, it doesn't always translate into long-term support, especially when the core issues being raised are not addressed in a meaningful way. And that brings everything back to the central question that fans keep asking, not just about Anna, but about the entire direction of the show moving forward. Because if the current pattern continues without change, it risks pushing away even more viewers who once felt connected to the family. And that is a risk that becomes harder to justify with each passing season. And as speculation about what might come next continues to circulate, there are several possibilities being discussed, from introducing new storylines that focus on other siblings to potentially addressing the family tensions more directly on screen. But each of those options comes with its own challenges, because rebuilding trust with the audience requires more than just new content. It requires transparency, consistency, and a willingness to show the full picture rather than a curated version of it. And whether or not the show is prepared to take that step remains to be seen. But one thing is certain, the conversation sparked by Anna's departure is not going away anytime soon, because it has already reshaped how viewers engage with the series, turning passive watchers into active critics. And once that transformation happens, it permanently changes the relationship between the audience and the show, making it far more difficult to return to the simplicity that once defined it. And in that sense, Anna's decision to step away may end up being one of the most impactful moments in the history of Seven Little Johnstons, not because of what it removed from the screen, but because of what it revealed behind it, a deeper, more complicated reality that fans are still trying to fully understand. And as that deeper reality continues to unfold in the minds of viewers, something even more powerful begins to happen. The audience stops just reacting to what they see and starts anticipating what they are not being shown. And that shift creates a completely different viewing experience, because now every edited scene feels like it might be hiding something, every cheerful moment feels like it could be covering tension beneath the surface, and every explanation from the family feels incomplete. And once that level of skepticism takes hold, it becomes almost impossible for a reality show to maintain its original tone, because the trust that once allowed viewers to accept the story at face value has been replaced by constant questioning. And that is exactly where Seven Little Johnstons finds itself right now, caught between continuing its familiar storytelling style and facing an audience that is no longer willing to accept it without scrutiny. And the longer this gap exists, the more noticeable it becomes, especially when fans begin comparing earlier seasons to the current one, pointing out how the show once felt more organic, more spontaneous, and more emotionally balanced, whereas now it often feels structured around specific narratives that don't always align with what viewers believe is actually happening. And this growing disconnect is not just about entertainment anymore, it's about credibility. Because when a reality show loses its sense of authenticity, it risks losing the very thing that made it successful in the first place. And for many fans, that breaking point seems to have already arrived, particularly those who feel that Anna's story was never fully told, that her perspective was minimized, and that her decision to leave was treated more like a footnote than a major turning point. And that perception has created a lingering frustration that continues to influence how new episodes are received. Because no matter what storyline is presented, there is always that underlying question of what might be missing. And that question becomes even more significant when considering the future of the show, because moving forward without addressing the concerns that have been raised could further damage the relationship between the series and its audience. And yet addressing those concerns openly would require a level of transparency that reality television does not always provide. And that is the dilemma, because while acknowledging the full situation could rebuild trust, it could also expose complexities that the show may not be prepared to handle on screen. And this uncertainty has led to a wide range of theories among fans about what might happen next, with some believing that the show will attempt to rebrand itself by shifting focus to new family developments such as Lizzie's growing family or Alex's potential independence, while others think that the only way forward is to confront the existing issues head-on, even if it means changing the tone of the series entirely. And then there are those who believe that the show may simply continue as it is, relying on its remaining audience and hoping that the controversy will eventually fade. But if recent reactions are any indication, that outcome seems increasingly unlikely, because the level of engagement surrounding these discussions shows no signs of slowing down. And if anything, it continues to grow as more viewers discover the situation and form their own opinions. And that ongoing attention keeps the conversation alive in a way that cannot easily be ignored, especially in an era where social media plays a major role in shaping public perception, because once a narrative gains traction online, it can spread rapidly and influence how a show is viewed far beyond its actual episodes. And in this case, the narrative surrounding Seven Little Johnstons has evolved into something much more complex than a simple family series. It has become a case study in how reality television intersects with